In the apocalyptic novella, The War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells imagines a crisis, an alien invasion, that effectively breaks down all the normal nationalistic boundaries separating competing nations. In the aftermath of the attack from Mars, the countries of Europe actually band together to help England, which was at the epicenter of the attack, recover. It's a narrative conceit that has played itself out in a number of films and books since, this idea of competing nations working together to fight off an alien invasion. And it's a wonderful idea that the world would come together in the face of a large-scale catastrophe that affects the many, not just the few. Yeah, if only the arrival of COVID-19 had illustrated the legitimacy of such optimism instead of giving us additional kindling to fuel the fires that divide us locally, nationally, and internationally. When one accepts the notion that humanity is fundamentally broken, this state of affairs becomes much less surprising. What else could we expect, really, particularly in the West, from a culture that daily inundates us with reminders to think first about ourselves? Our tendency to place the word self at the head of our theories of well-being, instead of focusing on the communal nature of healing and growth, attests to this profound self-centeredness. It echoes the rather large I, which figures in so much of our marketing, not just for Apple products, and functions as a kind of mirror suspended in front of us all day long to remind us of who matters most. Many of us have yielded on some level to that social Darwinian principle that survival requires struggle and successful competition, and that flourishing demands dominance. After all, the law of conservation of mass reminds us that while matter changes shape, it can neither be destroyed nor created, a principle that seems applicable to resources like time and energy. If we want to give to one part of our life, we have to take from somewhere else. Isn't it important to preserve our own physical and emotional well-being before we consider the needs of others? Is it any wonder that romance proves so vulnerable to the selfish demands we bring into any relationship? I'm Paul Marchbanks, and this is Digging in the Dirt, with the third entry in a 10-part series I'm calling Beyond the Honeymoon, Romance 101. Today's talk is entitled Oneness is Not Fantasy Fiction. Immediately after defining love as patient and kind, the Apostle Paul throws a wrench into the complex machinery of our egotism. Love does not envy, he tells us, nor does it boast. Now, envy and boasting involve not only a fixation on ourselves, but a distortion of the way that we look at others. Both constitute a kind of objectification, particularly when applied to romantic relationships. Envy, or jealousy, springs from a desire for a sensation, an experience, from a longing to transform our own situation so that it resembles that of someone else. Oftentimes, we do not know well those whom we envy. Perhaps someone's smiling, laughing, surrounded by friends, and we extrapolate an entire life filled with much more fun than our own. Or we see someone dressed to the nines, driving a really nice car, professionally successful, living in an amazing house, and we assume that such obvious achievement must accompany peace, ease, and an abundance of pleasure. In other words, we take a few facets of another person, blow them out of proportion, and then proceed as if we had a fully rendered vision of a dramatically preferable life. This is incredibly reductive and not at all fair to them. We all engage in this kind of imaginative construction of other people. It's a common pernicious error that relies on just a few variables. And it's largely because our lives are so fast-paced and fully scheduled, and it's difficult to find the time to put aside to learn more about a person than their online profile. I love what William Stafford says in the poem Next Time. Next time, what I'd do is look at the earth before saying anything. I'd stop just before going into a house and be an emperor for a minute and listen better to the wind or to the air being still. When anyone talked to me, whether blame or praise or just passing time, I'd watch the face, how the mouth had to work, and see any strain, any sign of what lifted the voice. And for all, I'd know more. The earth bracing itself and soaring, the air finding every leaf and feather over forest and water, and for every person, the body glowing inside the clothes like a light. Ironically, slowing down in this way for some of us seems to be as difficult as swimming upstream in a turbulent river, where we have to work hard to stay in place long enough to look closely at anything or anyone. It's so much easier to allow the current to sweep us backwards and downwards into an unhealthy mindset. Envy, in matters of attraction, often becomes lust, another form of objectification that can be contingent on ignorance. Knowing about someone's hopes and dreams, their struggles and trauma, complicates the fantasy I've concocted in my imagination and makes it very difficult to treat them as an object or an experience that I'm willing to do anything or say anything to obtain. In my experience, I've found that getting to know someone I find myself attracted to helps temper any unwanted desires I might be wrestling with. This mechanism was quite useful in middle school in forming friendships with girls and has proven rather convenient as a happily married man attached to a wonderful woman. Which is not to say that I never wrestle with lust. Part of me still wants the shiny surface independent of what might be inside it or any other relational ties I've formed. Novelty is so much more salient than the tried and true, right? The art critic Walter Pater in the Victorian period certainly thought so, arguing that in life, as in art, we fail when we form habits. Instead, we should be restlessly searching for new sensations, quote, gathering all we are into one desperate effort to see and touch. Well, university students then and now have loved his words and the freedom they grant to try out new people as often as new sensations. And really, he didn't need to codify this principle back in his studies in the history of the Renaissance. It was already deeply ingrained in the human race. As cavernous landfills and a global sex trade attest, industrialization and the information age have merely made more obtainable what we've always known we wanted, the freedom to move on to the next new thing, person, and experience at will. Boasting is yet another form of objectification that reduces both the boaster and the object of scorn to a few facets of their identity for the sake of a demeaning comparison. We laugh or grunt sympathetically when this happens on the sports field, one of the last venues where boasting is not only expected but encouraged. Usually, when this kind of bragging occurs, it's more subtle and more harmful. When I carry myself arrogantly in a heated conflict or make a sharp demand of others, I raise myself at the cost of lowering someone else, inherently denigrating them. I'm essentially taking one aspect of myself and suggesting others defer to me because of that particular feature. It's a power grab, and a sad, pitiful one when you think about it. Bow to me because I'm stronger, smarter, more educated, more experienced, or just more put together. Within a romantic relationship, such a recurring condescending posture creates an uneven power dynamic if your beloved repeatedly yields to you, and endless conflict if they don't. It's also unfair to yourself. Concentrating all your attention onto one small aspect of your identity so that you can feel superior is like gathering all your mass and density into one fist so you can better pummel someone else with it. This was a superpower wielded by the kid hero Jack Power in the 80s comic book Power Pack, which I used to collect. If everyone is made in the image of God, then you are so much more than those one or two features you feel the need to broadcast. After humoring his expectant audience with a long list of accomplishments he knows they will value, the Apostle Paul steps back and boasts of his weakness, saying that his dire need to be saved by a holy God is his most important feature. He is most proud of that fallible, mortal nature which he knows will prevent him from ever becoming fully self-reliant. Such humility seems rather appropriate in a romantic relationship that aspires towards the relational oneness advocated in Genesis and later cited by Jesus. Once we stop looking pompously at our beloved as an object to be obtained or conquered, we can begin exploring what it means to lean on one another in a mutually beneficial way.